What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Rewired Live. We're on episode 14. Um, Going live on a Monday. Like I said, we actually went live on, or not Monday. I don't even know what day it is. It's Wednesday. Going live next Monday, actually. Excited to be back doing these lives, bringing people on, talking about how we've rewired our internal state of being. I think it's very important. I got Michael coming. I actually met him in the Skool community and wealth of business experience, 30 years in business, building all the stuff. Now he's entrepreneurs with more of that internal work, which is why I wanted to bring him on and just and talk about it. If you guys aren't in the built community, it is free to join now. So you should get in there, start doing the stuff. Michael also has his own community. Dedicated to a similar thing. So whoever you're feeling on the live, people are drawn to different people. So at least join one of the communities and start, doing the internal work that's going to give you the internal success that you're looking for. Without further ado, Michael, how we doing?
Hello, Jake. Doing good. Awesome. Great.
Good to see you. I know we talked kind of briefly. We actually had a really good conversation last week. It almost went an hour, us just talking about what we talk about. But I wanted to bring you on here and have us go live so that people could see on our YouTube channels, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn more about what it is that really allows us to have sustainable success as entrepreneurs. I think that's like a huge point because we can have all this external success, but if we don't have like the internal success, it really doesn't mean anything.
Sure.
So talk about like I want them to hear like your story though. I know you already told me, but your business journey and how you get to this place you are now. You realize, the internal work is almost more than the external stuff.
Yeah. So I'll share my story, and but just so you know, Jake, there's a little lag still here, so that's why I'm a little maybe a couple of seconds before I respond. But I'll share my story here, and we see how it goes. So first of all, I am Michael, yes, and I'm 53, turning 54 soon. And I met, as Jake just said, Jake and I met and had a very, very awesome call a week ago. And the thing is, first of all, I'm just going to share now as it shows up for me. But first of all, these calls that had no agenda are amazing, and I've had a lot of calls, and I do think you had too, Jake. We come from different background, but meeting up with people, now this is online, but I would also say offline, actually just meeting up with people and not always having an agenda, and be curious about each other, and also let things unfold as we speak. I would even say it's kind of magic. And I've seen this. We had an awesome call, Jake, but I've seen it again and again and again. And it's something that actually, and it comes back to the question, it also comes back to the whole thing about the inner program and rewiring, because I just did a post today about me when I started out my online journey, and also when I started my business back in 2012. I actually sat and looked at my phone for 2 hours. I'm not kidding, 2 hours, because at that time, I'm getting energized here, but at that time, I was in a debt of 1.5 million US dollars. And that's true. And I'm going to share that story. But I knew I had to pick up the phone and call somebody that I could come and clean with, because I had a cleaning business. But I was just looking at that phone, and I was looking at it. It was kind of like my finger didn't want to go to the phone. And I remember that in my mind, so many stories began running inside about, but what if? somebody picks it up and don't want to talk with him? What if they tell me that I'm a joke? What if they tell me, why am I disturbing them? And I sat there and looked, and what happened for me, and this is true story, what happened for me was that I actually, after a couple of hours, my mind told me, Michael, now it's time to do business plan. And I was like, whew, yeah, business plan. So I took my pen and paper, I sat there and I wrote and wrote and wrote, and I made the most awesome plan. And then my mind told me, oh, Michael, you should clean up your office. And I started cleaning up my office. And I was like, yeah, I did so good. And I went on like that. The day was gone, finished. And I was like, I made a lot of to-dos and I checked them off. And I was like, yeah, man, you're doing good. Now, the one big problem here was that the number one and the only thing that I actually had to do in that moment to get out of my pain of a 1.5 million US dollar debt was to call a number and tell them that I'm Michael, I have a cleaning business, and would you like to meet me? And that was the only thing I didn't do. So coming back to your, it's just unfolding here, Jake, but coming back to your question, with that intro, I've been in business since I was 20 years old, and I was a store manager in McDonald's first 8 years of my adult life, and I became pretty good in my country with this. And then I was headhunted to co-create a coffee shop business, and I was the chief operating officer, and we did this from zero. I hired the first person, and when I stopped in 2012, we had 50 coffee shops, and I had 500 people in my team. So I know a lot about business. And beside that, I had so much entrepreneurship inside of me. So I did invest in properties in my country, and I ended up having 20 apartments. And I was hustling and grinding, and I just knew that this was the right thing. And it was, because it went really, really good. I'm the author of 4 books also, because I did books beside the full-time job, beside the properties, because I had so much inside of me that just wanted to create. In 2008, the financial crisis hit. In 2012, after a couple of years, that was like really disaster and the most painful years in my life at that time. $1.5 million debt, 2 years fighting with the banks, called into meetings, and I was stressed as I've never been before at the time. And in 2012, I stopped at the coffee shop company. So I had no job. I had a debt of $1.5 million. I had the bank after me. I was like, one thing that kept running in my mind was that I was just taking my car and drive down to south of Europe and continue to Africa and just, I'm gone. No one will find me. I was so full of shame, of guilt, of so many bad things, because all of my life was on paper perfect, but it wasn't. I lost control after the financial crisis. After that, I had some weeks where I was like stress. I was lying in bed, turning around. I was in sweat, and I didn't sleep. I was so messed up. One night, something happened inside of me, like a lightning, like a spark. And I just sat myself up in bed, and I did like this, and I yelled, no freaking way. And then I yelled, I'm going to solve this. And that was my first, like, real click into your question and what we took for this call about mindset and rewiring, because something happened that night. And after that, synchronicities showed up. I took action. I got to my first mindset seminar back in May in 2012. On that seminar, I decided to find my first business coach, even though I was in a $1.5 million debt. He showed up like that. I went on a call with him on Monday after coming home from the seminar. I signed up, and that became 4 years of extreme personal and business growth. So I grew that cleaning business where I started all of this sitting with my phone and not doing anything. Mindset shift, rewiring, taking the action. Less than 4 years, I created a team of 60 people. I paid off the debt. I created an offline speaking, seminar, coaching business, and have had thousands of people through my rooms. And when I'm looking back, all of this has to do with mindset. All of this has to do with rewiring. There's more than that, but that was the business version. So Jake, it became a little bit longer, but I was just letting it unfold here. Are you still with me?
No, it's good. My connection isn't great, so I'm just going to let you talk here. I'm going to ask you some questions, but if you can hear me, what do you think is the biggest reason that entrepreneurs chase that external thing? And how can they make that mindset shift sooner rather than later, and like not having to go through all that stuff?
Yeah, there's probably two answers that I would provide here, because there's two things. The first thing is the mindset thing, and the mindset thing for me, and I can take that phone as an example, for me and what I've seen with entrepreneurs at different levels. I've coached plus 100 high ticket, high level entrepreneurs, business owners who have teams around them, lots of experience. And we all have fear going on inside. So I know the post that I did today was about, even for some people, posting something or uploading a video. There's so much fear involved. So they can, like I said with the phone, they can sit for hours before they put, or even don't do it, put up the post or the video. But an experienced entrepreneur, maybe 20 years of experience, having a team, that person can have a lot of fear. Maybe it's deciding a new leader in the business, or maybe it's deciding a new product line, or taking a big loan to take the next level of growth. There's fear involved in this too. And the thing is that what happens to most of us is that we don't necessarily see this as fear. It's not like there's this lamp that turns on, red light, and saying, my fear lamp is on now. It is disguised, like it was with me on the phone, as stories. Most of us has some kind of story running in our head, and those stories are so convincing. I mean, for me, they still work. So if I'm aware of those now, so I know what's going on inside. But those stories will take most of us out of the game of anything we're doing if we are not aware what's going on. And if we keep with the mindset thing here, the first part for me is actually just being aware and understanding, okay, my story is playing now. Because when I distance myself a bit from that, also what I've helped people with, I can begin to understand, okay, it's actually not my whole being that tells me, oh no, the universe is against me, or this is the wrong decision. It's just that story going on inside. And there's a lot of techniques about rewiring. And I spent more than, I think it's $250,000 myself dollars in personal developments, seminars, coachings around the world. Been through so many different techniques. And one thing for sure that I've seen is that we can do all of these techniques, and I did it myself. We can go from seminar to seminar and read the next book and read the next book. But if we don't dial in the number and pick up the phone, and that means taking action, it doesn't matter how many books we read. It doesn't matter how much we know about all of these things. Action is the key. So I hope this is the answer of at least one of the things that came to my mind. And that, again, that was what helped me to be able to go from desperate and frustrated and to actually building a great team with 60 people and pay off a $1.5 million debt. Understanding what's going on inside and then taking action. So that's the mindset part of it. But I will just ask before I just keep speaking here, Jake, because else I can just talk and talk, because there's a deeper level of this that I became aware of us. But did that first one answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think something you hit on there is that fear is the fundamental blocker for so many people.
What do you see with this? What's your experience?
Mine is this is life though, right? The connection isn't good. I'm lagging. What are you going to do about it? Not going to get
it. That's how it is.
The same thing for me, right? I think a big thing for me is understanding that I am the observer of my thoughts and my emotions, and understanding that I had that awareness. That was huge for me, because then I could just, oh yeah, there's that negative thought that I can't do this. Oh yeah, there's that thought that I'm going to run out of money. Oh yeah, there's that feeling of anxiety. Just talking to myself like that really reduced the charge of all those things in my life. And I think that's a skill that entrepreneurs need to develop, is to be able to separate themselves from the negative thoughts and the emotions so they can get on and do what they need to do. Because people are just overwhelmed. It's like they're in the middle of the tornado all day long. It's like, hey, you are not your thoughts, right? That's what metacognition in psychology tells us. It's like thinking, it's like changing our relationship to thought, understanding that thoughts are just things in our environment, just like our phone is. Like, people know, yeah, I'm not my phone, but people don't know that they're not their thoughts or emotions.
That's a good one. And actually, the thing that is deeper for me around this is when you mention emotions. This is something that took me a long time, and it could go very long, this, but I'll try to keep it very short, because when I got my business at 60 people and I paid off the debt, and my whole coaching and seminar business was running pretty cool, something inside of me was still not right. And I understand today what it was, but I didn't understand at the moment. And so there's two parts in this. There's the fear part, and the thing you mentioned with emotions here is, for me now, I don't have that much the story running. It can still be there, but I have feelings in my system that's trying to protect me from doing something that's in the unknown or new. Mm-hmm. And what I realized from speaking with a lot of people and helping a lot of people with this is that most entrepreneurs, and if they have been in business for a long time, they might not, which was what happened to me, they might not be that connected with their body. So it might be that they don't feel those emotions. But then it's the story that keeps triggering them. What happened to me was that I came at a point where I realized I didn't feel the emotions. And I came at a point where I realized that was one of the things that I missed in my life, because when I was with other people that told me it feels so good, and I was like, I don't feel anything. And I began questioning myself, what's wrong with me? Why don't I feel anything? I set the intention that I wanted to understand and feel like other people do. And that became the most tough part of my life, because I believe in I don't know about you, Jake, but I believe that the universe answers. So if we really ask for something and it means something, the answer will be there. Are you the same with this?
Oh yeah, for sure. Happens to me all the time.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not that nice when the universe answers, because that has happened to me a couple of times. This one was heavy. I asked the universe to help me begin feeling. And I tried, and I listened to videos and YouTube and everything, but I couldn't really connect with myself. I was up here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after my divorce, I met this beautiful lady at a meeting with my cleaning company, actually, and I was just like, "Wow, there she is. This is my princess. This is the one." I just felt like, I don't know if you tried this, Jake, but I felt like, wow, this person is just something amazing here. This went into a relationship around 6 years on and off, and that relationship nearly killed me. There's so many stories, so many lies and manipulation and all of that. And even though we traveled, even though we were to weddings and big birthdays at my family and lots of things going on, so many things I never understood. And I kind of got drained. And after those 6 years, I had no energy left. I was kind of like I had a vampire sucking at my energy for 6 years. And I found out that she had a man for 20 years. So I was not the only one. When that happened, I crashed. Like, this was my second crash, but this one was a personal crash. I crashed. I, like a coconut falling from height and just crashing. And that was what I wished for, to begin feeling, because my whole system opened up. And it became some years for me, but so tough, because all these things that I was not used to as a child, to feel my emotions and didn't know what to do with them, they came up, all of the fears, all of the things. So I understand why the system locks. If we had, and most of us has had something not nice in our childhood. For me, it was an alcoholic dad who was not abusive, but it's not a good thing to have an alcoholic parent. Mm-hmm. People have been bullied or some other things happening to people, and for most people, it's going to be locked in here. So these experiences that we have, the system locks them in. There's a word for this, actually, I can't remember. So there's a protein wall around it. So our mechanism protects it, and we don't have access to these things. But they're in there running our program. So some of the stories that we talked about, they come from some of those experiences, and our system is just protecting ourselves from not doing anything that could hurt us again. Mm-hmm. So this has been a long journey, and I don't know the science about all of this. I remember, Jake, you're very interested in and also figuring out the science. I saw you mention something yesterday. Maybe you want to share that. But for me, it's life experience. Do you remember you talked about that system in the brain? You posted something I saw.
Yeah, interesting. You talk about emotions being stuck in the body. And I think that a lot of times we're not taught how to feel our emotions. So we suppress them, and that traps it in the body. And it tries to come up, right? It's trying to come up every time you feel it, and then we suppress it. We shove it back down. So there's an area of research called memory reconsolidation research, but it basically states that when an old emotion like that's stored in the body gets triggered, if you can meet it with a pattern interrupt, meaning like a relaxed state of being, you can re-encode how that memory is stored. So now every time you think of that situation, instead of feeling the stress and the anxiety, you feel the peace. So it gives us this beautiful lens to look at our triggers as opportunities for growth, opportunities to release these things instead of something that's a regression.
Nice put, much shorter than mine. And this is good, because this is I actually, if you want to share that thing about, I know that system, but you dived a little bit more into it. I saw yesterday about the RAS system, but before that,
that
yeah. But before that, it's very, 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 very powerful what you just shared. And again, for me, that's kind of whole my life. I'm not dived that much into the scientific part of anything, because for me, it's always been like just throwing myself out into it and figuring out what's going on. But there's something very powerful in what you're doing, Jake, because for most people, and probably me too, when we get the science around it, it helps us or at least it helps the mind to find like and that's what you just did there, a road. So we have like a strategy, if you could say it like that, to, okay, that's a way to rewire this or reprogram or shift this.
I think it helps us believe it more in a sense. It kind of helps our brain like, oh, okay, this is really how it works. That makes sense. And it helps you implement it. Because you might believe something is true if it's kind of an esoteric concept. Like it makes sense to you. But having something like, oh, wow, they've actually studied this and it actually has this effect. I think there's something about that that makes you believe it more and ultimately more effective. And additionally, like, don't get me wrong, I've experienced all this stuff. So I experienced it first. And then I backtracked into like, oh, I wonder if this has ever been studied anywhere. And that's kind of how I dug into the science, because I went through all this stuff. I went through not being able to handle my emotions and all that and all those things. So I just want to get more context because I'm a learner.
Nice. And that makes sense. So Jake, what about that RAS mechanism? Is that something you want to share a bit here?
Yeah, I think the reticular activating system in the brain, that's like where you buy a car and you start seeing that car everywhere on the road. And it's not like the car just magically started being on the road. We became aware of it. And so it's a very interesting statistic that 11 million bits of information hit our awareness at any given second. And only 40 out of the 11 million, only 40 out of 11 million make it to our conscious mind. And I think let's look into it more. I think the main filtering mechanism is our beliefs, really. So that kind of explains the law of attraction too, the spiritual concept, law of attraction. What you believe, what you're aware of, your brain's going to show you more of. So a very powerful filter just to live your life. Like, how do you want to live life? What do you want to experience?
This is, it's very interesting. And I did see your post, so it got me to actually share a video about it just before your post. So I know about it, but I didn't know about those 40, what do you call it? Bytes?
Yeah, just bits. I don't know. That's what they said.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. But for me, what I used to explain around this, and I was really happy when I saw your post, is like we got all of this thing outside here, outside of our skin. But our senses, which is what can bring the outside into the inside to a brain, our eyes only see a little bit of what's out there. Our ears only a little bit. That's what you talk about with the bits, probably. Mm-hmm. So we know the dogs, they hear much more. The cats, they can look at the night and all of these things, which means that we only take in a little bit of all of what's going on in the outside. And from my understanding, it could be beliefs. And I'm not sure if this is right or wrong, so it could also be my own belief, but what I wouldn't say concluded, but have been curious about is that if it's something that is important to us, which also could be beliefs, and that mechanism, like a flashlight, it will light up that exact thing of all the thing going on there. So we will only see one little piece of the whole puzzle. And when you brought the law of attraction into it with your post and what you just shared, Jake, I was just like, this is really cool what you just saw there, because maybe, and this is just a maybe for me, but maybe the law of attraction, what it is all about is actually that, and this is a maybe, but everything is out there. Everything is out there, maybe even different universes and all things, but we can't, our brain will just crash. So if we can, that's what you're doing with rewiring, as I understand it. If we can kind of rewire so the beliefs or what's important for us becomes the good things that we want, that RAS mechanism will begin to flashlight those things.
Yes, exactly. That was my realization too. And I was like, that's why I was like, wow. I was like, blew my mind. And I was like, and this completely aligns with like intention. People always talk about, oh, you have to have the right intention. That's what that means. Your intention is where you put your awareness, and where you put your awareness is what you're going to see. So if I wake up every day and believe that I'm a social media influencer and I have 1 million followers, that's what I really believe. The system's going to start showing me the pathway there because that's what it believes, and I think it's like from a biological standpoint, it's because our brain is constantly trying to predict, like save energy. So it's just it's just a prediction machine based on our past experiences, which is wild. That's why awareness is so important. We got to be aware of what are our beliefs, because we are creating our own reality. And that's really the difference between being a victim and being a creator of your reality. The victim is like, oh, life is happening to me. It's like you are creating the life based on what you believe and how you're doing these things. You got to change the internal and the external will change, right? It all starts internal. Internal creates the external. There's a book called The Kybalion, which is like the 7 Hermetic principles. But one of them is, as above, so below as above. But basically the inner creates the outer world. And it really is real. And another thing that's actually crazy, I was listening to a neuroscientist, but she was saying that nothing really exists. This is kind of a mind bender, but out there, it all is like, even like the light spectrum, it just comes into our eyes and everything's constructed in our brain. So it's like nothing's even really out there. She said, no 2 people see green on a tree the same way in the whole world. I'm like, that is freaking nuts.
And not only that, I was with some young people a couple of years ago. I'm an actor also, and was on a movie set, and those people they know much more. I mean, they were like 20 or something. Then also my daughter is 16 because of TikTok and things like that. They know much more than I do about all of these things. But what I was told is that the way that our eyes and the brain, it's actually turned, I think it was upside down. So when we look at something, it's actually turned around, but our brain turns it around. So everything we think is true is actually not true at all. And it's amazing, and it's funny, and it's also a bit scary sometimes.
It sends you down a rabbit hole of like, what is reality at that point, like what is true?
That is a rabbit hole, yeah. But now the thing is that, and maybe you have explanation for this too, Jake, but the thing is, what I've realized, not that much when I did my offline coaching, but now with my community where it's about, as the name here, money and expansion, and like you said, rewiring things, and the inner program, many people, when they listen to or watch some YouTube guru around manifestation or the law of attraction. And by the way, some of these, they have millions of followers saying, just sit and it will come to you. Mm-hmm. And many people say, first of all, I'm interested in why they have so many views. And I have an idea, it's because we want to find the easy way to get our results or the things that we desire. Many people say, but why isn't it working then? I mean, if I can just turn on my rash, change my beliefs, why am I not very, very super rich and wealthy and happy and all of this? And I'm curious, I have my own idea here, but I would really like to pick your brain on this one, Jake. What do you think around this? Why is it that so many people are still suffering, which is actually the case when the law of attraction or the RAS is there and we know it?
Yeah, I think it's one thing to consciously say something. It's another thing to actually believe it. Like I can say, oh, I'm a millionaire. But if I got to believe to my core that that's who I am, despite everything in my external world. So if they haven't gotten it yet, I believe that is why.
Yeah, and that's my experience too. And coming back to the things that we touched about, the feelings, the emotions, the trapped emotions. If we have something deep inside of us, which many of us has, me included, something deep inside of us of not being good enough or not deserving, or fear of rejection, which I learned recently is something that is so deeply engraved in us, because it comes back to being an animal. Animals don't want to be rejected. They want to be part of the the gang, or whatever you call it. So if we have these things deep, deep, deep down inside of us, if we are not very aware and take the right action and rewiring, if we're not doing these things, those hidden things from we were 1, 2, 3 years old will run most of the program. So like you said, Jake, even though I tried this, even though I sit and meditate for years, I am a millionaire, like you said. I'm trying to program my whole system. This one doesn't have access to all of the things going on down there, or which is in there. So that will still be the thing that turns on the RAS.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think a big part of that is we have to be able to sit in silence and reflect. It's the only way to figure out what is it deep down there that you don't want to feel, that you don't want to experience. It's the only way to see it. You got to open the basement door eventually and see what's down there, right? Because if you keep piling shit in there, soon it's going to start coming up into your house.
So what is your maybe experience, or I don't know if I got a better word for that, but just sitting in meditation and see what comes up. Have you seen things showing up for you just sitting in meditation, or did you do something to stir these things up?
I would see stuff in meditation for sure. I think, you practice building that skill of awareness and letting thoughts go. And I just kind of observe the thoughts that come up. I look at those pre-programmed thoughts are like basically my subconscious conditioning. That's what my system's trained to act like. So I just kind of observe those from a back seat, like, oh yeah, interesting. I just had like 5 thoughts about, scarcity with money or XYZ. Like, I wonder where that's coming from. So being that observer, just seeing what thoughts come up, tell me a lot about, I think, myself and what I have stuffed down there, so I can begin to dismantle that and let it go.
That's a good one. What I've experienced and played with, and also as a coach, but that is, like I mentioned, when we have to take some kind of action, like I said with the phone, those things are, at least from my experience, are things that are really good if we are aware, to show us what's going on the inside. Because every time that there's something we know we have to do, but we don't do it or stop, for me, that's a sign that there's something in there which is stopping my actions or making me less than I can be. And there was one thing more that I was thinking about. Yeah, also, I'm curious about this, Jake, from your perspective. If things shows up in our life, you mentioned you also had your stuff, but for me, it was a partner, was this business, and many more things. But when things shows up in life, that's not how we want them. When we speak about rewiring and speak about law of attraction and all of that, what's your experience or perspective around these things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think all of life is things happening that you don't want. I mean, like, that's just life, I think it is surrendering to the flow of life's events, meaning I don't fight it, and I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like, I do not know if this is good or bad for me, right? There's like that ancient Asian parable about the Chinese guy and his son breaks his leg, and the townspeople come over and say, oh my gosh, so bad, so bad. And he goes, maybe so, maybe not. And the next day the army comes through and they're drafting people, but his son gets spared because he has a broken leg. The townspeople come in, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. He's like, maybe not, right? And then this like this back and forth thing, but it's like, you never know what's good or bad in our lives. So just releasing outcome. You can't control it anyways. That's what I said. Life is going to life at the end of the day. So we just need to let it go and focus on what we can control. A little bit of stoicism, but I think it goes a long way.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Oh, you.
Yeah, there's two things that shows up for me around this. The first thing is when these things shows up, it's an amazing way to, when you say let go, for me it also means if I get something in showing up in my reality and I feel some disturbance in my emotions or tension or something like that, that's like a magnet. So something attracted something out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I played with this when I really went deep. If I start releasing those things, so as an example with your yellow or red car, let's say I am in a car and someone drives in front of me. And when I was younger, I was like, getting
Yeah.
like this. And it kept happening to me. But then when I began to understand about the emotions, and I was like, okay, there's a lot of emotions trapped in here, and I began to release it, shift those energies, and let go of that. I didn't experience people coming in front of me anymore. So I've played a lot with this. Those things that shows up that we don't want might be the things that can, if we want to use them like that, can be the things that helps us to release those energies that attracts them inside.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the rest, if I got a lot of irritation inside, and that's the rest things that's important to me, it will find things that can irritate me.
Yeah.
And another thing around this that I have been very, very interested in is, and it's not my own, I don't recall, I think many have spoken about this. When things shows up in our reality that we don't like, we can let go. But there's also another thing. It helps us to understand what we actually want.
Mm.
If I'm in lack of money, okay, I can focus on the lack of money, but my rest will just find more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can try to release it and begin saying, okay, that's interesting. I don't want lack of money. So I have to, like you said before, my goal is actually abundance. So that's kind of the two things for me right now that I'm playing with.
Yeah, it's like Wegner's White Bear study in 1987. You know, and they told people don't think about a white bear. You know, you think about the white bear. So it just went into the paradoxical effects of thought suppression. How you can't suppress thoughts. You can't tell yourself not to do something. You have to let it go and focus on what you do want.
Yeah, it seems like the same thing. Nice.
Yeah. That's good, Michael. We're gonna cut it here. We're a little laggy, but I think still a ton of value. I had some people on the live and it's recorded. We'll definitely go around 2 when I have a little bit better connection. I can go a little deeper into some stuff, but it's great. It's great connecting with you and talking about this stuff. And I love the mission that you're on because it's just so important. And it's just amazing that you're at this point in your life where this is the mission that you're on. So where is the best place for people to find you though, if they want to? I put your Skool link in the bio here, so that'll be there. Anywhere else?
The Skool link is perfect, and on my Skool, on my profile, there's also a link to my YouTube where I share these stories and my insights and things like that. And with my name, I'm also on Facebook, and so yeah. But the Skool is the place where I'm really focusing and in English on these things. So that's perfect. And I will do the same, ask you the same question, Jake, because if we still got a deal around that, I'm going to put this up on my YouTube. And so where's the best place that people can find you?
Yeah, I'm on all social media platforms, but again, I have our own Skool community built for impact. Or I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Jake BURHAN's official. But yeah, if you just search Jake BURHAN's on Google, I'll pop up for social medias. But yeah, till next time, brother.
Awesome.
Power. We'll be in touch.
Amazing. Thanks.
All righty. See ya.
See you.